We are going to have some fun with the soldering iron today. I'm talking low temp soldering. So gather your supplies and let's have some fun. Hey friends, welcome back. My name is Beth and I'm an artist and jewelry designer, and I'm the author of the jewelry making books Boho Chic Jewelry and Soldered Alchemy. And today I'm going to show you how unbelievably easy and fun it is to make stamped soldered pendants. Now let's get started. The technique we'll be doing today is from my first book, Boho Chic Jewelry, 25 Timeless Designs Using Soldering, Beading, Wire Wrapping, and more. So if you want further info and photos on this technique after this video, be sure to check out the book. To get started, I'll be working on a protected surface. I'll be using liquid flux with a disposable brush, a pair of old pliers that I only use for soldering, and a generic lead-free solder. I have my soldering iron nice and hot, and I have some pre-made copper and brass blanks that I will be soldering onto. I also have a copper loop that I made out of wire. I'll be using red rubber stamps, so be sure your stamps are red so that they do not melt. Now yesterday I put up a video that shows you how to remove all of the tarnish from copper quickly and easily. So if you haven't seen that, be sure to check it out. And while you're there, don't forget to subscribe. So clean your metal pieces first. I bought these online and they look to be coated with something. So I scrubbed over them a bit to remove some of that coating so that my solder would stick. First and foremost, be sure to wear safety glasses and work in a well-ventilated area, and always wear a respirator mask so that you don't breathe in fumes or dust. And by the way, I've also listed all of the tools and supplies you will need for this project in the description below, so be sure to check that out too. Now to begin, I will apply flux to the areas of my metal where I want solder to stick. I'm not coating all of the metal, just about half of it. With my iron nice and hot, I'll pick up a blob of solder and I'll apply that to the metal. I'll repeat this process until I have what I think is a nice amount of solder on the metal. Keeping the solder molten hot and in liquid form, I will very carefully use a rubber stamp to make an impression into the solder. Watch, it's like magic. Isn't that cool? The neat thing about this is if the solder doesn't turn out the way that you like on the first try or second try or any time, all you have to do is hold the tip of your soldering iron up against the solder and it will instantly remelt and you can impress it again. Now you want to be really careful because this is very hot. If you have to touch the metal part at all, make sure you use soldering pliers and do not touch it with your fingers or you can burn yourself. You also should have a fire extinguisher in your workshop or in your home. So if you don't already have one, you can get a small one at the hardware store, and you know, it's always very important to have those kind of safety measures in place as well. Here is another loop I'm doing and I'm repeating the process. I'm using a different rubber stamp for this one. It has a different pattern, so it's going to get a different design. Now let's do it again. Hold your ring in place with your soldering pliers. Use your flux brush to apply some flux. Now it comes in liquid form, it comes in paste form. You can try out different types. I always say use what works best for you. I like the liquid. So I'm going to again pick up some droplets of lead-free solder and I'm going to apply those around the edge of my ring, and I'm going to run the tip of my soldering iron over back and forth to make sure all of the metal is melted. And you want it to be molten hot, and then take your red rubber stamp very carefully and impress it into the metal. You can mount your stamp onto a block of wood. If you like, I just buy my stamps by the sheet, so that's what I used. Now this one I'm showing you here is one of the ones I bought online, and it looked like it had a finish on it. I mean, obviously it had like an antiqued finish that was applied to it. I tried to rub some of that away. I used a green Scotch-Brite pad just to try to remove some of that finish, because you want to have the metal as clean as it can be so that your solder will adhere. So I'm picking up blobs of solder. Once again, I did apply flux first, and I'm just going to rub it all around the area where I applied the flux. And I did not put flux over the entire piece of metal. I'm only doing like the bottom or so half. So you'll see the contrast from the silver and the brass color, and it makes a really nice effect when you're all finished. So check this one out. And like I did with the other, you just have to remelt it. Sometimes you want to add a little bit more solder if you have a larger area, or you have a deeper stamp where you need more of like a detailed impression. Not all rubber stamps are created alike. Some of them will have a very kind of a shallow, fine design. Other ones have a deeper, more detailed design. And sometimes the solder will stick into your rubber stamp, and you just wait a moment till it cools down, and you can just pick that solder right out. It just gets stuck into some of the fine grooves of your rubber stamp. So now we're on to our next one. This one again is another brass piece that I did scrub down a little bit to try to get some of that vintage finish off of it. On the lower half, I applied liquid flux, and I am again going to apply some solder. And you're just going to pick up pieces, about the size of a pea maybe. Apply one, apply another, move it around. You need to have just a nice coating on there. You'll know when you do it whether you have enough or whether you have too much. Now this is a fine design on the rubber stamp. It's like a plume or a feather. I use this one a lot, and it's a lot different than the other one that I was using, and it's a whole different effect. So that was our second brass piece, and now we get to move on to the copper disc. And this one polished up very nicely. I'm applying some liquid flux and some drops of solder and spreading it around with the tip of my soldering iron, just figuring out like how large of a design I want on my metal, and spreading it back and forth. It doesn't even have to reach the edges if you don't want it to. You can really make it however you like. And then I'm going to very carefully and gently impress down with my rubber stamp. And you want to be careful when you do that. You don't want to like slam the stamp down, and there's a possibility that you can make some hot metal splash out the side. So if you just do it slowly and carefully and gently, you'll be fine. And this is how you remove some of the excess from around the edges. You very carefully use your soldering iron to just touch up against little areas of solder that happen to be maybe misshapen outside the edges that you want to remove. So use one hand to hold your project with your soldering pliers. I hold it above my table, but make sure you do not hold it above your lap, and make sure you hold it over your work area, and use your dominant hand to hold your soldering iron, and very carefully you're going to very, very lightly touch it up against those areas of solder that you want to remove, and they will melt right off. And you don't have to press hard against it. You don't want to melt too much off, and you'll get a feel for it once you try it once or twice. So I'm going to just shape them until I'm happy with them. You can see this one I went over a little bit more. It just wasn't turning out right for me. But then in the end, I was really happy with how I was able to smooth out those edges and re-stamp them, and I liked the way it turned out. Now, once you are all finished soldering your pieces, you're going to let them set on your work surface for a few minutes until they are completely cool. And then you are going to move over to the sink, and you are going to give them a good scrub with an old toothbrush and some dish detergent, or a little fingernail brush. If you have something like that, it works perfect. So I'm going to apply a black patina to two of our pieces here. I've picked out a copper one and a brass one, and I have liquid patina that is for stained glass, and I'm putting that on a plate that I only ever use for patina. And the same with the brush. I have a craft paintbrush that I only ever use for applying black patina. And I'm going to just dip the brush into the patina and very carefully brush it on. And you will see pretty much instantaneously that silver is going to turn grayish black. For some reason, the first one I did, which was the brass one, the patina, when I put it on, it got a little bit more grayish, and when I did the copper one, which you can see right now, it really got like really black, really rich, beautiful dark color. And I don't know why that is, because it's the same solder. I mean, you saw me just make them a moment ago, but it is what it is. It's half the time it's experimentation, and I'm just going to touch up the edges. I'm trying to just get the patina only on the silver part of the metal. And once I'm happy with the coating of patina, I'm going to let it set. You do not want to get these wet. As a matter of fact, after you wash them, before you put the patina on, you want to make sure that they are completely dry. So I'm going to use a piece of a paper towel after a minute or two, and I'm going to blot off a little bit of that extra patina, and then I'll take them over to the sink and I'll rinse them underwater. I don't even use soap. I just use a little fingernail brush and get some of that extra patina off. I will dry them with a paper towel, and then I will bring them back over to my workbench, and we are ready to buff them. I'm using a green Scotch pad to buff mine. You can use regular fine steel wool. And all you're going to do is you're going to rub it and try to get some of that black off. And the black that is in the crevices will remain, and that's what's going to give you that beautiful vintage finish. So it's another one of those magical things that I just love about jewelry making. I love finishes and patinas, and it's such a really cool effect. Watch when I do this really dark one. Look how pretty this is once that silver starts to come out. It really pops. And while you're buffing this, you want to make sure that you buff it in all different directions. Using a circular motion is great, so you can get all of the black patina off the areas that you do not want it to be. And once you feel like you're finished, use a paper towel, wipe it off, and if it's still a little bit too dark, you can remove a little bit more of the patina by buffing it a little bit longer. And then once I'm all finished buffing it, I'm going to wash it again, just run it under some water. You want to get some of that dust off of there, and then clean it with a clean cloth. And here's a look at the two that we added the patina to, and then here are two that we left silver and a few others. So you can see the difference, how it really brings out the design when you add a little bit of patina. So I'll probably go back and add patina to all the other pieces so you can see that beautiful design. I hope you liked this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Thank you so much for joining me. While you're here, don't forget to subscribe and hit the little bell next to the subscribe button so you can get notified when I release a new video. I have something new coming up very soon, so be sure to check back, and I'll see you next time.